because it was the first time I saw not only a dead body, it was the first time I saw somebody die. I've never seen that before in my life, and now it's my own father.
How is a doctor actually supposed to address the root cause of what's happening with the patient in 8 minutes?
They've never been taught the fundamental of life, which is energy, frequency, and vibration. That's how you go about healing.
And it's the people who got the most jabs who are also the most sick.
I will never, ever, ever donate to cancer research, and I'll tell you why.
Look at the food that you're consuming. You'll have an idea of what is actually going to nourish you and what's going to poison you.
He said, no matter what happens, I want you to know I'm always going to be here with you, but I'm going to be very, very upset if you stop doing the work that you're doing.
Welcome back to the Jeremy Awakens podcast. Let's fucking go. Today we have a very special guest, someone I've been wanting to have on the show for a very long time, a truth seeker, a truth teller, and someone who's not afraid to challenge the narrative and go deep into the unknown. Jason Shurka is a writer, speaker, spiritual teacher, and founder of Unified World, a global movement dedicated to awakening, sovereignty, and building a new earth through truth, health, and unity. Jason is on the front lines of the consciousness revolution, bridging the gap between science and spirituality, decoding frequencies, exploring light-based healing, numerology, and the multidimensional nature of who we are. What's up, baby? Jason.
It's a good intro.
It's nice, right?
It's a good intro.
ChatGPT coming through, bro.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah, man. It was good. It was good. I'm glad you're here, bro.
Thank you for having me. We've been trying to do this for a few months now, and obviously a lot of things came up and left and right, but I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah, man. And it's really sacred to have you here at this time. You know, I think it was a week or two ago, your father passed away unexpectedly. And, you know, it's really going to be special to kind of see how you transmute a lot of this pain into deepening the connection to your purpose and the healing work that you're doing. And I just want to ask, man, like how you're doing now. You know, I know you're still in the middle of processing it all. So what's been coming up for you?
I never thought it would happen now. It's always going to happen at some point, but it was out of nowhere. It was unexpected. My, if you want to call it luck, my blessing from him was the type of person that he was. And I could go on and on about him all day. A lot of people around the world knew him as well with the business that he was in. He helped a lot of people as well in the health and wellness space. But as much of a businessman as he was also, and he still is, I speak about him in present tense because I know he's here. He's just not here physically. He's extremely awakened in a way that made it so much easier to accept what happened, because he accepted what could have happened. He accepted it many times throughout his life. And because of that, he was smart enough to prepare me throughout life of saying, you know, if I'm not here tomorrow, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. And just a few days before he passed, not knowing that he was going to pass, or at least I didn't know, he said, no matter what happens, I want you to know I'm always going to be here with you, but I'm going to be very, very upset if you stop doing the work that you're doing. Because you came here for a purpose, we all did. Nobody's here, and these are his words, nobody, none of us come here to eat, sleep, drink, and repeat. We come here to share blessings. We come here to help. We come here to give. And if you're not fulfilling that, you failed me. So a lot of people, after something like that happens, would maybe want to stop everything that they're doing and let me just take a break. And I did that for 2 weeks just to process for my own self. And I'm sure I'm going to process for the rest of my life. But the words that he shared with me of keep going, don't stop. I'm here and I'm going to be stronger from there. I'll never, ever forget. And it empowered me. And really, and I said this before we started recording, although he's not here, I feel more protected and stronger with him there. But I miss his body here. And when I saw the whole thing happen, because I was there when the whole thing happened, and it was a very, very traumatizing sight to see in terms of the entire transition, it was also a beautiful sight to see, because it was the first time I saw not only a dead body, it was the first time I saw somebody die. I've never seen that before in my life, and now it's my own father. And I was able to clearly see the difference between a body with life and a body without life, all the way to his eyes. I was with him for hours after he passed, just looking. And, there's an eyeball with life in it, where it has light. And then there's just an eyeball. And I saw the entire process of that light leaving his eye, moving from, or transitioning from an animated eyeball with life to just an eyeball. And when I looked at his body, it actually made it much easier for me to process and accept what happened, because the next day, or really the same day, because we did the funeral within 12 hours. That's what we do in Judaism, as soon as possible. I wasn't burying my father. I was burying my father's body. It made it so clear to me that that is just his body. Because when I looked at the body, lifeless, it wasn't him. And it made it easier to distinguish between his body and him. And that him is what I feel around me all the time.
Yeah. So do you feel like his soul is eternal in terms of just being here fully present with you at all times?
I know it is. And I know it is because when you bridge science and spirituality, they're really one and the same. It's our consciousness that creates a division between the two. Energy, first law of thermodynamics, cannot be created or destroyed. That him is an essence. It's an energy. Call it a soul, call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
That essence cannot be created and cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed, going into different forms. And I see him through other people all the time. I see actions that other people are doing where I'm like, thank you for that. So I have this closeness with him now that I didn't have when he was alive. And I still miss him, and I'll always miss him. But it makes it much easier, and I feel a lot more empowered, because now I'm not just Jason doing the work. I'm Jason with the energy of Manny doing the work. And that man, I wish you got to meet him, was the strongest person I've ever met in my entire life. He was a man of honor, respect. That was first and foremost. You didn't need to sign a contract with him. A word comes out of his mouth saying, we're going to do something, we're going to do it. And everybody knew that. And it taught me a lot, and it made me appreciate that so much more, because we don't have that in our world today, at least not in America. Everything works on technicalities, and I'm going to sue you on this technicality. But everybody forgets honor. Everybody forgets respect. And that's something that I want to keep moving forward in his honor. Yeah.
That's a beautiful reflection. And I think what's really special is, from the outside looking in, you're someone that is very connected to the work that you're doing. You're very connected to your mission and your purpose. And it sounds like this experience is just going to amplify that to a whole new level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's really just a reminder that our greatest pain gives us the opportunity to really just step into a new level of consciousness, a new level of purpose, a new level of intention. So I'm really excited to just witness that, and what you step into and how you honor your dad in the process of what it is that you're building moving forward. And you mentioned that your dad, I mean, the passing was very sudden. He was big in the health and wellness space. He didn't have any signs of illness. And it started as something that sounded so innocent, just like biting his tongue, that turned into this infection. And I don't know how much you want to share, but for me, that just triggers the shit out of me. Because it's like, bro, the people that we're supposed to be able to trust with our health are actually one of the biggest causes of why people are dying unjustly. You know, we talked about this, like how medical error is the third leading cause of death in America. Whether it's misprescribing people with drugs, you see this shit all the time. You know, people are handing 7-year-olds Adderall. They're handing people who might just have a nutrient deficiency an antidepressant. They're handing people with high cholesterol a statin that's providing more and more problems, when actually cholesterol is not the issue.
Correct.
Cholesterol is actually a necessary nutrient for your brain health and your hormone health. Yet we're not holding the medical system accountable. And that's what frustrates me. And that's why I think these conversations need to be had. So what's coming up for you regarding that and what you witnessed in the medical system regarding your dad and at a grander scale as well?
It's not even just him. You see, growing up, and this is what inspired my mission that I'm doing today, and I do a lot of things. We got unified TV, unified healing, the light system technology. I'm doing a lot of things at the same time, but the common goal is, how do we make this world a healthier place, a more educated collective, a more aware and spiritual collective, and just a better place to live for us all. Growing up, again, he's a businessman, but he was very, very educated and knowledgeable in the health and wellness space. He's not a doctor. He was not any of those things, zero credentials, zero schooling. He dropped out of college, like zero education in the formal educational space, but a very smart man. So when he was 32, he had his own process of something with his hips that were going on, losing bone marrow or whatever it was. Doctors said, you're not going to be able to walk in the next 12 months. And that's what started his journey to start reading, studying, understanding the power of your diet, the power of your food, the power of reading a blood test the right way. And through that, he was very passionate about it. So he started sharing it with family, with friends. Then he started seeing sick people coming to him that were family and friends, started giving some friendly recommendations, and it started working. So it motivated him further to go deeper. Let me learn more. Growing up, Jeremy, every single day, every other day, there was somebody coming into my house, sitting in his office, while he wasn't working on his real estate, because that's what he did. He built an empire. He built something beautiful. He didn't need to focus on it all the time. So he had a lot of time to do what he was doing on, call it like the medical side, just to help as a friend. Word spread. A lot of people from around the world started saying, we want to talk to Manny. We want to talk to Manny. Every other day, somebody was coming in with a terminal illness, 2 months left to live, 6 months left to live. And he's not a doctor, but because of his education, I always saw, he said, let me read your blood test. Almost every time somebody gave a blood test, he said, what is this? This is what your doctor gave you? Not a good script. You're going to take this script from this doctor, go get this blood test, and then I'll show you exactly what's going on. And from there, we're going to measure the level of dirty electricity in your home. We're going to measure the water in your home and get you the proper filter. We're going to come to your home, him and my mom specifically would then go to that person's home, open their fridge, open their pantry, see all the garbage that they had, throw out 90% of it because only 10% was good, take that individual to a grocery store, teach them exactly what to buy, educate them on the ingredients, and deal with a holistic approach just because they wanted to help. None of this was a business. They never made a dollar from any of this. So I saw the problems with the medical system growing up, and I saw the solutions that were right there in front of our face, but were being blocked from us because you're empowering people. They no longer need to take the drug. Those companies get pissed off. My father was banned from Sloan Kettering Hospital because every single time he walked in, the cancer patient walked out. And they didn't like that because they would lose $250,000, $500,000 every single time the person said, I don't want to do that therapy or whatever it may be. So anyway, seeing that,
fucking dark.
I wanted to bring that to a different level. I saw what he was doing, and I said, if you can do this, and I'm your son, let me make you proud and bring this to a completely different level. That's how Unified Healing started. That's how Unified started in general. Let's educate the world, because at dinners, Shabbat dinners, my father was the one that always spoke and just lectured and ranted at everything going on. I just wanted to bring it to a completely different level. So that's where my inspiration comes from. And It's because of the medical errors and all that, because the system is broken. To hold them accountable will not fix the system. It will fix something short term. Beyond holding them accountable, we need to build a new system. Their system will become obsolete. Let them crash, burn, move on. We need to build a new system that's not based on, I need you to be disempowered so I can keep you alive and sick for a long period of time and make money on you. And that's what I'm aiming to do, and that's what we've been doing over the past 3 years.
Bro, that's fucking wild, bro, that you got to grow up in that environment.
Yeah.
And your dad was so ahead of his time.
Big time.
So he was informing people about like the fluoride in their water,
everything,
and like the different toxins in their environment, mold exposure, all of these things that are so mainstream now. They're getting to that point, but he was there 30 years ago. And
that's how I grew up. So keep in mind, everything that I talk about today it's in my blood. You know, it's in my blood. It's something that's a piece of me because it's all that I knew. From 7th grade onwards, all the way through 12th grade in high school, I was kicked out every single year of health class because they would share such stupid nonsense. And I'm looking at her as like a 12-year-old, giving her the facts. And I'm like, no, you're wrong. And this and this and this. And they got pissed off. They called me an interruption to the class. Yeah. Because I would get in the way of them teaching. And I told them when I sat with the principal every single time in each school that I went to, they're not teaching. They're sharing false information that's going to hurt people. And my job is to stop that. So I was like this since I was, 10.
That. You know, it's interesting. There's a lot of overlap because my dad actually was a doctor in the medical system. My dad was a neurologist for over 40 years. And through that process, I witnessed my dad change a lot of lives, save a lot of lives. And I saw the other side of the system. I would go visit him like maybe once a month. And I would just observe the hospital setting, and I would see these clearly unhealthy people waiting in line to get their next prescription filled. And I was like, something just feels wrong about this, And the average appointment time with a doctor and a patient in 2024 was 8 minutes, bro. Like, how is a doctor actually supposed to address the root cause of what's happening with the patient in 8 minutes?
You know what else takes 8 minutes?
Taking a shit?
When you meet with your drug dealer.
Yeah.
And it's not different. They're legal drug dealers. There's something called the PDR. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Physician's Desk Reference.
Yeah.
I bought it in 2018 when I learned about it from my dad. It's about 3,000 pages that's updated every single year. 3,000 pages of the thinnest paper you've ever seen. And all you have to do is very simple. It's a dictionary of diseases. You go to the disease or the diagnosis, and it tells you exactly what drug to give. That's called a drug dealer. That's not called a doctor. A doctor, if you go to the root of what the definition of a doctor is, it's a teacher. They're not teaching. They're dealing drugs.
Yeah.
And there's a problem there because now we're living in a world where, take Big Pharma. Number one, Big Pharma is our fault because we're the ones buying it. We're the ones buying into the idea. We're letting it happen. We could blame it on them all we want, but we're the only ones that can stop it as people, as a collective. And the reason why they got that far is because as a collective, we are not as aware as we should be. And if we are aware and we know certain things and we know very simple fundamentals, nobody can lie to you ever again. Because when you connect some dots, you know all the answers, at least on that level. Now, Big Pharma and the medical system as a whole works on something called reductionism. Whereas what I do is works according to something called Holism. So imagine a computer screen with 10,000 pixels. It's making a picture. Holism looks at the entire picture, understands all the pixels, but looks at the entire picture before making a decision. If I change something on this pixel, what will happen to this pixel over here? That's holism. Reductionism only looks at the individual pixels and not the entire picture.
Yeah.
And what happens over there is, or the result of that, is something like Accutane. They've perfected something that gets rid of your acne, that pixel, but it destroys this pixel called the liver. Or another drug that they'll give you for your heart. It's going to fix the problem in your heart, but you're going to get cancer. So that's reductionism. You're doing one thing at the cost of another. And it's a reflection of our society. Look at our society and our collective as a whole. We live as a divided form of humanity, not a united one. There's different countries. Our country is better than this one. Our religion is better than yours. We're forgetting the interconnectivity of everything. That creates war. So the expression in the macro of reductionism is war, corruption, crime. The expression in the micro of reductionism is disease. It's just a different expression of the same frequency. And until we learn that and understand it, we're not going to get anywhere. But thank God people are starting to understand it, unfortunately through tragic events. But if that's what needs to be done in order to wake us up, that's what's going to be done.
Well said. Well said. And I mean, these bigger macro issues that are happening, right? Whether it's war, all the different conflicts happening, is usually a product of fear and trauma from a collective standpoint. But then from an individual standpoint, like you said, when you have an individual, and we saw this very clearly during the pandemic, right? The people who were operating from the most fear were the people who were also getting the most sick.
100%.
It was the people that were wearing masks while they were driving by themselves in their car. It was the people that were completely socially isolating themselves. It's the people that were numbing themselves and also just being a slave to mainstream media and allowing those narratives to penetrate literally their soul on a cellular level.
Yeah.
And it's the people who got the most jabs who were also the most sick.
Yep.
Because that fear is driving inflammation. And I think oftentimes people forget about that. And like the fact of the notion of doctors being drug dealers, man, it's sad to say it, but it's the reality that we're living in. And it's unfortunate because I would say probably 80 to 90% of doctors have good intentions when they pursue medicine.
100%.
Right? They go to medical school because they likely want to make a positive impact in the world. Unfortunately, they're getting indoctrinated by a system that's not allowing them to actually serve humanity in a holistic way.
Well, it's beyond that. Remember, the average person that goes to med school, 10, 12 years. But it's not just the amount of time that it takes. It's the amount of money. They get out of med school, you're $500,000 in debt. Even if you see a problem and you want to speak on it, you're probably not going to, because it would lead you to getting fired. Right. And if you're fired, you have a $500,000 bill that you're not going to know how to pay. So it's beyond indoctrination. Even if somebody knows, they're likely going to shut their mouths out of their own personal security and out of their security for their families. And you got to understand where they're coming from. That's why the percentage, although it's small, of doctors that do say, whoa, this is crazy, and start talking about it, I have the most respect for them. Because I don't expect anybody to go and put your family's security and your financial security and all of that in jeopardy. So we have to have compassion for those people that don't do it as well. But the ones that do, they're the real superheroes. Because, I mean, imagine you're going to school for 12 years to learn something. That's like what, 15, 20% of your life in some cases.
Yeah.
15% of your life. All this money spent, all this time spent, everything spent, and now you're saying it's wrong? That takes a very special person to do that.
Yeah.
Just like it takes a special parent to say, maybe I did something wrong when I gave my kids all of those things between age 0 and 18 that I probably shouldn't have put in their bodies. Parents don't want to face that, even if they know that it was wrong, because in their eyes, they're like, I hurt my child.
Yeah.
It's a very, very big thing to be able to stand up. It's a noble thing to stand up and say, I made a mistake. Now what can we do to fix it? Most people won't do that.
Yeah.
But the more people who do, the more people will.
Yeah. I think, so I don't know if it's changed, but I know most medical school formats now, it's like 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency. So 7 years total, which is still such a long time. Like, think about that. I mean, that's from ages 22 to 29.
Yep.
And what's crazy about residency, man, is these future doctors are put in the worst scenarios and situations. Like, their health is being compromised. They're usually operating from 4 hours of sleep. Yep. They're in a hyper stress state. And we're expecting those people to actually take care of our bodies and of our health, and they're not even healthy themselves. Yep. And that's a huge disconnect. It's like, when's the last time you actually saw a doctor that was super fit and super connected? Just like I wouldn't take financial advice from someone who's broke.
100%.
I don't want to take health advice from a doctor who has 3 fucking chins and is morbidly obese just because they went through medical school. Like, and I think we just need to have that conversation. And one of the biggest things that's being prescribed today, I'm sure you see it all the time, is like, antidepressants.
Yep.
And I think it was Prozac that was first introduced in the early 1980s. And now it's Lexapro, Zoloft, Wellbutrin, and all of these SSRIs and antidepressants that are supposed to increase the level of serotonin production in the brain have actually been found to cause dysfunction to our gut microbiome, which is where we produce 90% of our serotonin. So the same drugs that are supposed to increase levels of serotonin are actually fucking with the part of the body that's responsible for producing serotonin. It's absolutely absurd. Like, why aren't we having this conversation? And that's why I think us jamming like this is so important.
100%.
You know, because the work that we're doing is actually empowering people to become their own healer.
100%. That's everything that I'm about. And even the name antidepressant shows you there's something wrong, because the medical system is obviously not aware, or at least the majority of them. They've never been taught the fundamental of life, which is energy, frequency, and vibration. That's how you go about healing. So the word antidepressant is already focusing on the wrong subject. The subject, the frequency of focus in an antidepressant is depression. Meaning, take Mother Teresa. She would never go to an anti-racism rally because the focus is racism. She would go to a pro-unity rally, same intention, different frequency, different outcome. So like everything that I do, for example, with that technology, the light system, it's focused on not how do we get rid of the bad, it's focused on how do we increase more of the good. Because when you increase and create an environment of more coherent energy, what we call bad, which is just distorted energy, cannot survive in the first place. Same thing with cancer. Right now, today, we're all trained to say, okay, how do I kill the cancer? How do I beat the cancer? That's the wrong focus. The cancer is not the problem. The problem is the environment that allowed for the expression of dis-ease in the first place. So if you focus on the environment first and foremost, instead of killing the thing, well, then you're going to be in a much, much different place. Because when you kill the thing, you create more killing in the body. And that's what the main 3 forms of treatment for that specific disease do. It creates more problems in the body. Instead, if we asked, okay, we know that every individual dealing with that disease has a more acidic pH, lower oxygen levels in their body, and a lower cellular charge. Well, then instead of saying, how do we kill it? Why don't we start asking, how do we increase the pH? How do we increase the oxygen levels in the blood? And how do we increase the cellular millivoltage in every single one of your cells? Because when you do that, that disease cannot exist in the first place. So I think what we really need to speak about, and this is one of the bases of everything with all the wellness centers that we have around the world, is first educating people, not just saying do this thing, but educating people and saying, what is the true difference between health and disease? And without all the big words and fancy names and all that, it's very simple. From the level of energy, health is coherent energy, disease is distorted energy. And you have energy running through your body all the time. Now, if you have distorted highways for that energy and electricity to move through, like distorted water molecular formations in your body, which energy moves through, the energy will get stuck. And if it gets stuck, it results in a dis-ease of flow of energy. And then you get things like cancer and heart disease and depression and so on and so forth. The only thing you have to focus on, and this is what we focus on in all of these clinics around the world, is how do we recreate a coherent energetic environment? If you do that, all your other problems are solved. I don't care about the 10,000 pixels. I care about the foundation that controls those pixels. And the foundation is energy, frequency, and vibration. You correct it from that foundation, everything else will take care of itself.
Are you ready to feel limitless in 2025? I'm talking limitless physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, financially. This is your sign to try out microdosing for 30 days. We have a very special opportunity for podcast listeners. You can get started for only $222. This includes the medicine being shipped to you, the highest quality, fair trade, organic, sustainably sourced microdoses in the world at your doorstep. And you also get access to live group coaching calls with me, our private community. This is your sign to take ownership of your life in 2025. If you're ready, hit the link in the description, and I can't wait to see you on the inside. Wow. Okay, so we'll dive deep into how people can actually implement that, whether it's grounding, whether it's changing
100%.
the water they drink, whether it's the way that they breathe. But it's also interesting because this whole slogan, like fuck cancer, right? I think everyone is in alignment. Like, let's have less cancer in the world. And how many billions of dollars have gone into cancer research?
Yep.
But cancer rates keep going up.
I will never, ever, ever donate to cancer research, and I'll tell you why. They've had the solution for a long time. But do you know what would happen if something like that were to come out to the world? Trillions of dollars of an industry would be lost. A lot of people would be helped, but there are people with a motive to make sure that doesn't happen. I've seen with my own eyes people overcome it like that by doing certain things. Not everybody. Nothing's 100%. But Dr. Brzezinski in Texas is a perfect example. The government's been trying to shut him down day in and day out. And that man has patents on things that I've seen what they do. He's dealt with 20,000 patients, terminally ill brain cancers, with 2-3 months left to live that are alive 20 years later.
Wow.
Okay, with no side effects. And that's, I mean, why support something if you already know that the solution exists, and you also know that anytime somebody brings out the solution, they're killed, they commit suicide with 2 bullets in their head somehow, or they're tried to be shut down. It exists. All of our solutions exist.
Yeah.
And they've existed for a long time. What we need to do is not focus on finding the solution, it's there. We need to focus on getting it out, getting people aware of it to a point where the powers that be can't stop it anymore. And we're on our way. It just takes time.
Yeah, you were breaking down the stats of roughly how much the medical system makes from a cancer patient and the whole chemotherapy process. Do you have those numbers? It's like a couple $100,000.
The numbers that I have, yeah, I remember $250,000 to $500,000 every single time somebody walked out of that hospital. Don't quote me on the number exactly. What I could tell you is there are only 3 ways to legally treat that disease: chemo, radiation, surgery. A doctor is not allowed to tell you, change your diet and it will do this. And they're not taught about nutrition either. They're given like 12 hours in their 10 years in schooling. So nutrition is a very, very big piece of it. But if over the past 50 years, those are the only 3 ways that we can go about it, and they work, well then, why have rates increased? And I've heard so many people say, no, we just didn't know how to diagnose it 30 years ago. And we can know how to diagnose it more today, so more people have it. That's the biggest bullshit I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Okay? And when it comes to any form of diseases, I mean, ask your parents, how many people did they know that were autistic when they were kids? Nobody. Today, it's like 1 in 4.
Yeah.
Cancer is 1 in almost 2.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a crazy number. 38% of Americans have cancer.
Or will get cancer. We should stop saying fuck cancer, and we should start saying fuck the things that are causing people to get cancer. Environmental toxins, glyphosate, right? In the soil, all of the other artificial food dyes and artificial sweeteners that are banned in many other parts of the world.
100%.
Right? Like, all of these lifestyle factors are the root cause of what's driving so much of the disease. Yet we're focusing on the end result when we should be focusing on the inputs.
Yes.
You change the inputs and you get different outputs and results. It's very simple.
And we need solutions to real solutions, not solutions that somebody makes trillions of dollars on and keeps you captive. Solutions that could be forms of technologies and whatnot. I'm all for that. But you got to also show people what to do alongside that. Eating the right way, drinking the right way, thinking the right way, speaking the right way. Those things are very important. I mean, take speech. Speech is a sound. It starts as a thought. A thought can be measured as a frequency. So the bridge between the spiritual world of thought and the physical world of matter is speech. You take a thought, think of it as H2O, okay? You have a gas, a liquid, and a solid. You can't go from a gas to a solid without first hitting the liquid phase. You can't go from a thought to matter without first hitting the speech phase, the speaking phase, the words phase. So in that same way of H2O, gas, liquid, and solid, it's all H2O in a different form. Well, thought, speech, and matter is all something in a different form. So take this can. This can exists as a thought. I could think about it. This can exist as something I could speak about, and this can exist as matter. The only difference between the thought of this can, the speech of this can, and this physical can is the frequency of the can, because it still exists as a thought. Now, when you have thoughts over and over again, I call it the program of your mind. When you have thoughts that are negative over and over again, that's a frequency. That frequency will be reflected in your words, because your words are like a magnifying glass to see your thoughts. Your words show the program of your mind. And from there, your words then take a less dense frequency, making it a little bit more dense to something we could hear in the frequency of sound.
Yeah.
And that frequency, over and over again, creates like an imprint in the sand until it becomes matter. So if I consistently have positive thoughts, not in denial, but positive thoughts based on certain fundamental laws of this universe, and I speak in alignment with those, the universe will have to show you the reflection of that, because that's how it works. To your question about the simulation, we are the ones creating it from the realm of thought to the realm of speech to the realm of matter. But when somebody's experiencing some nasty disease or some nasty circumstances in their life, it's because of you. Every single thing that's ever happened to me, every single thing that ever happens to you, number one is your doing, and number two is happening for you. Because if everything is one and interconnected, oneness will never do anything to hurt itself. Even with my father, I could sit here and say, why did God take him away? What did I do to be punished? But no, I choose different. What can I take from my father to make this world a better place? What traits and characteristics can I adopt over time to not only become the man that he was, but succeed him as well? And that's taking a completely different approach, where I could have taken that energy and that situation, turned it into something horrible, but I could also do the exact opposite.
Wow. You're doing an amazing job of it, bro. So what are your thoughts with, there's a lot of talk obviously about like the power of affirmations, right? I've done some work in the last year with Tony Robbins,
Yep.
and he has his incantations where it's like, if you want to change your state, you need to combine changing your focus, your language, and your physiology. So it's like incantations, it's like bringing more passion and emotion to it, getting your physiology involved. So you're actually reprogramming your nervous system in that process, rather than just looking in the mirror and saying, I am beautiful, I am successful, I am abundant, right? Which is what I think a lot of spiritual people think of when they do affirmations. So what is your mindset around that? And what are some personal things that you implement in your life to elevate your vibration and really program your mind in a positive way?
It's a great question. The power of affirmations, a lot of people hear that and they're like, what kind of woo-woo spiritual stuff is this? I'm a man of science. I'm definitely on the spiritual side, but nothing that I can't prove one way or another. And everything can be proven. You just need to know how to look at it. A couple decades ago, there was this man named Dr. Masaru Emoto, a Japanese businessman turned scientist. He had a hypothesis. His hypothesis was, is it possible for my thoughts, my emotions, and my words, my intentions, to impact the environment around me? And the way that he went to test that hypothesis was with water, because water has a molecular structure to it. And he wanted to know, could my emotions, my intentions, my affirmations, my thoughts, and my words change the molecular structure of water without touching it? So he took one glass and he said, I love you, good intentions, positive vibes towards that. And everybody's looking at him like, what the hell is this guy doing? There's no way anything's going to come out of this. This was years ago, a couple decades ago, 3 decades maybe. He then took another glass of water and he did the exact opposite. I hate you, you're disgusting, you're gross, and so on and so forth. He then took that water to test his hypothesis, froze it, took a sheet of it, put that sheet of frozen water in a petri dish under a microscope. And lo and behold, the positive water with positive intentions all had molecular structures that were all coherent like snowflakes. Perfect structures. And the negative one was all distorted and ugly looking. And he tested it over and over and over again, and it kept happening over and over and over again. Now, what does that teach us? Well, me and you and everybody else are made up of roughly 70% water. Water is how energy moves through your body. If you have coherent structures of water, energy has a path to move through in a coherent way. But if you have distorted structures of water, energy gets stuck. And when energy gets stuck, you have stagnation in the body. That's what the word disease is. It's a dis-ease of energetic flow. So not only do I believe in positive words and affirmations, we know that they work scientifically. And if you want to take it a step further, if I ever did something to like curse you, right, and have really bad intentions towards you as Jeremy, not only am I hurting you, I'm hurting myself first and foremost, because the frequency of that thought towards you and the words, if I spoke them towards you, is impacting me first in terms of proximity, because now those frequencies are going to distort the structure of water in my body. Energy won't flow, and I will end up getting sick unless I fix it. Now, there's two ways of going about it. You can either be very disciplined and every day have your incantations and have your routine and so on and so forth, but being real as a human being, we're going to miss sometimes. Sometimes we have a phase of being really good, and then it doesn't last forever. So right. I like finding ways. I like finding systems. How can I do something that regardless of my level of discipline, I'm going to have that around me almost 24/7? Exactly what you're talking about with positive affirmations and all that is one of the fundamental pillars of the light system technology. It has affirmations built into it that are scrolling on a screen in an encoded way that I sit in front of every single day in my office. It's there 24/7, whether I like it or think about it or not. And now I can actually program those intentions in a way where not only I'm getting the color therapy and everything else that the technology has, but I've now created a system that's not dependent on my discipline. Yeah. It's dependent on electricity and me paying a bill, which always happens every single month in my apartment. Yeah. All I have to do is that. The system does the rest. I sleep around it, I sit around it, and it's a little hack along the way, alongside all the other things that you must do. Your diet, your water, your breathing, your meditation. But some days we miss, some weeks we miss, sometimes we're going through a phase. You still want that all around you all the time in terms of creating a coherent environment for yourself instead of just depending on your discipline. And with that, just like Dr. Masaru Emoto showed us the effects of what it can do to water, we see the same thing with the system. And the testimonials are insane, dude. You're seeing people with autism that are nonverbal start speaking again. That's something that's unheard of. You're seeing people with bad vision reverse their eyesight. Without much hair, getting thicker hair, growing their hair. With back pain going away. All of these things are self-reported testimonials that people are sharing, and the beautiful thing is, it's the opposite of what the medical system does to us today. The technology is not healing you. You are healing yourself. The technology is a system that you're using to give your body the proper resources to do what it does best. Your body is your healer. But if you're putting yourself around a cell phone tower 24/7 and you're around distorted frequencies or incompatible frequencies, you're going to synchronize with that.
Yeah.
If you put yourself around coherent frequencies, you're going to synchronize with that.
So, the experiment with water that proved the power of words and affirmations. Do you think it's the same with food?
It is.
So, one of the things I've been thinking about is like, okay, listen, probably 80 to 90% of the days we're super disciplined with what we're eating, staying away from seed oils, staying away from processed packaged garbage, staying away from artificial food dyes, etc. That 10% that we just allow ourselves to indulge and not give a fuck, right? I'm curious if actually saying some words like, yes, this food might not be the highest quality ingredients. However, I trust that it's going to heal me. I trust that it's going to nourish me. Will those words actually impact the way that the food is getting absorbed and digested in my body?
Food is also primarily made of water.
Yeah.
depending on what food you eat. Like a steak is 70% water, 30% matter. An apple is like 97% water.
Steak is 70% water?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Which is low compared to the apple, the cucumber, the watermelon. Depends on what you're eating.
Yeah.
But
It's hard to fathom.
when it comes to things like that, it also depends how much you cook it. You know, the more you cook something, the more water comes out of it, things like that. But when it comes to whatever food you're eating, everything, no matter what food, unless it's like a Dorito, right? Some real food we're talking about here, is made of primarily water. That means that you could structure the water in the food. However, what's interesting is when it comes to food, so long as you're getting it from a proper source, you're also now getting almost like, I like to call them codes, but like the wisdom of earth that's built into that food as well. Like you're eating an apple, you're eating the energy of an apple tree. And that's a different energy than a pear. That's a different energy than a pomegranate. And by the way, you see them through the colors of the food. So how do we know what to eat and for what purpose? Because I always say food is your medicine, color is your guide. Shape is also your guide. So talk about shape before color. You know, carrots, when you cut them, it looks like an eye. Carrots are good for your eyes. So are apricots. Grapes are good for your lungs.
Walnuts
Walnuts
literally
are good for your brain.
They look exactly like a brain, and it's one of the best foods for supporting brain health.
That is not a coincidence. That's God's language. It's like the language of energy, I call it.
Nature has such divine intelligence.
It's incredible, but color is even cooler. Because now we're hearing about like red light therapy and blue light therapy. And 10 years ago, everybody thought it was crazy. And today everybody's going for it because it works. Now with food, well, what is color? First and foremost, color, we were taught red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. We call it Roy G. Biv. That's what they taught us when we were like 6. And that's kind of where it ended. But color is a wavelength. It's measured in nanometers. So the difference between red and violet is not anything other than a wavelength of energy. That's all it is. It's a different frequency. And we as human beings process and decode that frequency into what we see as color. That's all that red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet is. So it's a frequency.
Yeah.
Now, you know, in those diagrams of like, you know, somebody sitting like this in lotus position,
And
and
the
they have the
chakras.
7 chakras.
Right.
Well, it's also red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet in that order. And it's in that order because it's just different wavelengths in terms of their graduation from one another. Now, your root is red. The next one is orange. Your sacral is yellow. Let's go to yellow for a second. Your digestive system, which is what they call the sacral chakra, your digestive system, or the solar plexus, sorry, your digestive system is not yellow because somebody just wanted to draw a rainbow. It's because the optimal frequency of your digestive system is the frequency that we perceive as the color yellow. So now look at what foods are perfect and target your digestive system. And they just so happen to be yellow foods. Pineapple, mango, lemon in your water, bananas. Let's go to red. Red is your blood flow in your body. That's what that chakra is really focused on with your root. It's your grounding one. Well,
Beets.
just so happens to be cherries, cranberries, pomegranates. They're all good for blood flow, things like leukemia and inflammation in your body. They lower inflammation in your body, meaning the fruit or the food is actually trying to show you, hey, eat me for this purpose because this is what I'm built for to help you heal yourself. Now, when we take that to the next level, you can use color as a form of light therapy. That's where red light therapy, blue light therapy comes into as well. So that's also another pillar in addition to the affirmations that we spoke about. It's another pillar for the light system technology. You see a lot of different wavelengths scrolling on the screen because your body is inheriting those wavelengths. They call it polychromatic light therapy, meaning a lot of different wavelengths of light therapy. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Your body then absorbs that. And when you give your body the optimal frequency, in this case through the medium of color, it will rebalance that part of your body. So green will rebalance your heart and your lungs. Red will rebalance your root, your blood flow, your skeletal and your muscular system. It's absolutely incredible. We see it through food. We see it through color in general with light therapy, and that's why one of the core pillars of the technology is focused on color, because you are color. We just see ourselves a little differently.
I've never actually heard the chakras explained like that, the energy centers of the body. And I think that's a beautiful breakdown and can actually provide so much clarity for people to understand, like, okay, I'm having some heart issues. Let me find some nutrients that are going to nurture my heart, some green foods,
Yep.
right? Or maybe I'm having gut issues. It's like, okay, how can I lean into more pineapple, more of these yellow colored things?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And it's not just food, it's also the sun. The sun will help you with those things. In Japan, when you're feeling heartache, heartbreak, or physical heart ailments as well, they have dedicated forests that they send you to go walk through that are green covered.
Yeah.
Just for that.
Forest bathing.
So it's like they're ahead of their game. Japan, Germany, there are a lot of things that you could do there that are illegal here. They're illegal here because they kind of work.
Well, that's just another representation of how flawed our healthcare system is.
Yes.
Right? We've been programmed in America to fear the sun. No, don't go out there. You're going to get skin cancer. When in reality, it's actually these sunscreens
Yes.
that are laced with a bunch of chemicals that are the root cause for skin cancer.
Just very logically, if you look at, and I like taking logic to explain things also. If the sun caused cancer and gave you, and I'm not saying, again, if you're in it 24/7, abusing yourself, different story.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm talking about. When they say the sun causes cancer and you have to stay away from it and hide from it, well, if that were the case, then statistically, skin cancer should be higher near the equator. It's not. Skin cancer is highest furthest from the equator. So how does that make sense? It's like, you just got to think, there so many people have given their power away to these authority figures that they don't know what they're doing. And sometimes they do, but they know that they're misleading because they're getting a really big paycheck on the other side. And unfortunately, it all comes down to education. If you are educated, nobody can lie to you. And a lot of people are like, yeah, but it takes, so much education, so much knowledge, so many years. I don't have time for that. I'm an accountant. I'm a lawyer. I'm going to trust the experts. The truth is, it's not that difficult. You see, infinity sounds big, but it's made of 10 digits. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you know 10 digits, you know infinity. If you know about 8 fundamental laws, you can connect every single dot from there. So I wrote a book on this. It's called 2. One's called Forming the Formless, and one's called The Language of Energy. The last one that ties all of those together is called Accessing Awareness. For anybody that wants to dive deeper into those and understand those like laws, if you just know those several, less than 10 fundamental laws,
Yeah.
you can connect and understand absolutely everything, make sense of absolutely everything, because infinity can be known by what infinity is built upon.
I think also a lot of the stuff around health and healing is really intuitive.
Yeah.
And the main job of the matrix, of the demonic agenda, is to disconnect us from our own divinity, to disconnect us from the creator, to disconnect us from our own intuition. But if you actually take a step back and you just look at the food that you're consuming, you'll have an idea of what is actually going to nourish you and what's going to poison you. And same thing with water. It's like, do you really think it's a good idea to drink water from a plastic bottle that's been baking in the sun, that has thousands of microplastics and chemicals that disrupt your endocrine system? Like, if we actually just approach things from an intuitive standpoint, we can heal ourselves. But we've been so disconnected from that, bro.
Yeah.
I
did a silent retreat in Costa Rica by myself about 5 years ago for 7 days.
Okay.
And no phone, no technology, nothing. Just me in this village in the middle of nowhere Everybody's eating with their hands. Everybody's barefoot. I went all in. Now I'm like, okay, I'll be barefoot too. I'll eat with my hands. Let's embrace everything. Few days in, you'd be surprised how loud everything is when you're so silent. The things I saw, like, it's going to sound crazy, but like I could see the trees connecting to each other. I saw an iguana and I had a connection with it. Like, the connection was always there. I just couldn't have seen it because there were so many other things going on. So it's there. The question is, do you see it in front of you? But what happened to me was very interesting. I went to eat one day, lunch, during the retreat. And I was eating with my hands. And there was this thing, and I didn't know what it was. And at the time, still am, but not so much, I was very, very sensitive to gluten. And I picked this thing up, or I was about to pick this thing up out of my plate, and I didn't know what it was. It was not obviously gluten or anything like that. It was just something that I didn't really understand. The second I touched it, I had this like message in my stomach, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Put it down, it's not good for you. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I wrote on a piece of paper, because I had to know, to one of the people in the kitchen what's in there. And they said, it's this with gluten, X, Y, and Z. I'm like, oh my God. Just by connecting in that way and being so present, there was a message being sent to me that I would have never been able to hear if I was in my day-to-day with the chaos and the busyness and all that. And it shows you that intuition is there for everybody at different levels based on how clear or blocked you are. And although we can't do that every single day because, you know, I'm telling you, I was walking barefoot and I was like getting messages from the earth. It was the craziest thing in the world, the craziest experience I've ever had, one of them. But you could still get very close to that in this world as well, in regular society as well, by eating well, drinking well, thinking well, speaking well, you know, doing all those things. It might take some extra effort, but that's the cost of living a non-natural life, wearing shoes made of plastic, you know, living in homes made of concrete and some chemicals, and sleeping on a mattress that may not be the best. And mattresses don't make sense either, but I'm all for it because I live in this world. We just need to counterbalance that as well to be able to, the more you're going to go this way, the more you're going to have to also bend this way in order to keep yourself in balance. So it's just how things kind of work right now. And I do believe one day our world will change and our technology will change to be created in such a way where, like, an iPhone doesn't need to be bad. They just need to build it in a way where it's emanating and radiating productive and coherent frequencies, as opposed to frequencies that are incompatible with the body. Because you're a bundle of frequencies, just like the iPhone is. If those were compatible, it wouldn't be bad for you.
It's funny because I asked you before we started recording what your experiences were with psychedelics, and they're very limited. And the experience that you were just sharing from that silent meditation were very psychedelic.
Yes.
Right? It's like that level of connection, that level of oneness to the earth is the most healing frequency. Right? Just getting barefoot. It's crazy. Like those electromagnetic frequencies that you're absorbing. And that's also a great way to create a more alkaline environment, right?
100%.
But it was funny because literally yesterday, I'm with my boy and, you know, we took a very small dose of mushrooms and I knew that the mushrooms were working because I saw this cat underneath a car and I felt so bad for the cat, bro. I had this level of compassion for that cat and I was like, oh my gosh, like I hope that cat is safe. I hope it has a home to go to. I hope it has food to eat. If I was in a normal, ordinary state, bro, I would just like be riding my bike and see a cat and just think nothing of it.
But now imagine thinking like that all the time.
Yeah.
That's where I think we need to get to.
Well, what's cool is you have one experience with a psychedelic and you see things that will stay with you in perpetuity. Like once you see something, you can't unsee it.
It changes your action moving forward.
And that's why they say that 5 hours with ayahuasca can be equivalent to 10 years of therapy because you're going to such depths and you're experiencing things that is sometimes hard to access in the normal realm of reality.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's interesting. And it seems like you're tapping into a lot of that in other ways.
100%. I've never, and again, I have nothing against it at all. Like I've heard such amazing things. I've even told people, I think you should go and do this. You know, I think it could be good for you, especially people with like deep traumas and all that. It helps. You know, I've seen in terms of not doing it myself, but I've seen a lot of individuals go through incredible journeys and see incredible results where trauma just falls away from, you know, really, really deep-rooted stuff. So for whatever reason, it just hasn't been a part of my path. And I will say yet, because I do believe maybe at some point it will be, but I don't know. You know, whenever it becomes a part of something or I'm called to do it, I'm all in. I just haven't, it hasn't. I told you, I did mushrooms once when I was 18 at a party in Thailand. That does not count.
Yeah.
Right? I'm talking about doing it the right way.
Well, you said something at the beginning of this podcast that I think actually communicates a really powerful aspect of psychedelics and plant medicine. You know, you mentioned how everything in this life is happening for you, including the death of your father. Mm-hmm. And I think what psychedelics and plant medicine give you access to is completely shifting your perspective of an experience from your past. So maybe it is abuse, maybe it's your parents getting divorced, maybe it's some other traumatic event that happened during your childhood that you've been holding on to and carrying so much guilt, shame, anger, resentment. What these medicines open up for you is a new, fresh lens like, oh, wow, I actually see how that happened for me.
100%.
And it was so painful and it was so challenging. But I see how that series of events and emotional wounds actually allowed me to step into the version of myself that I am now. And that reframe will change your life.
Yep.
Because now you've just shifted that energy from this rumination and lower vibration to a space of gratitude. Like, oh, wow, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that shitty thing that happened.
You know, the difference between joy and sadness is, number one, a choice, but number two, a frequency. It's all it is. Meaning, take a base frequency of just like existence, and then joy happens, and then it takes that and it's like, you know, and then sadness happens and it's like, when you look at it from that perspective, it really changes a lot because now you're seeing it from an objective point of view.
Right.
And if I'm experiencing joy, I can choose right now, if I wanted to go into sad times and sadness and see it differently. And that frequency of joy would change into a frequency of sadness. But I could do the opposite too, right? That's why a lot of people told me this and it works. They're like, when you're feeling really shitty, smile. Go and smile. And every time I do it, even if I don't mean it, I feel these like chills going through my body. And you can feel the frequency changing because there are ways to also trick yourself into going through different things and almost like hack yourself into achieving what you want to achieve. And I think we should rely on those things because we are those tools. We are the greatest form of technology there is. And if we understand the base of it all from the level of energy, frequency, and vibration, that's what it all comes down to. Life is a game of energy, frequency, and vibration. Master those laws, you master life. It might take some time over time, but it's like electricity. Nobody knows what the hell electricity is. They don't. They know that we call it electricity, and it's something that gives you the ability to do this, right? But beyond knowing what it is, it doesn't really matter what it is. All you have to do is know how it works. Today, because we know the laws by which electricity works according to, we can power this studio, we can power cities, we can power the world. And now when you have an electrician connect a light switch in your bedroom and you click the light switch and it turns the lights on, it's not a miracle. It's a mastership of electricity. I know how it works. And here's the light switch, flip it on, the lights turn on. Now, if we did the same with energy instead of just electricity, and we mastered the laws of energy, understood the language of energy, well, then you become a master of your life. And now the equivalent of flipping a light switch would be as Simple as doing that would be creating what you want to see in your life. That's what mastership really looks like, becoming a master of those things. It's not impossible. It's very simple, but it does take work to make it second nature because it's not enough to know it in your mind. You literally need to live it. It must be the only reality that exists for you, because if any other one exists in your mind, that's called a doubt. It stops it.
I'm trying to visualize little Jason in like 5th or 6th grade, bro, like challenging your teachers in having access to this information. What was it like for you? I'm curious, growing up, your childhood, because you were elevated. You had access to this information that most adults never access, right?
Yeah.
So was it hard for you to connect with other kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what I did. What I'm sharing now, you could say like my soul knew it. I only started speaking about it when I was like 19, 20. And the reason why is because that's when it became more conscious in my system. Because of certain things that happened. I went through a bunch of injuries, was in the hospital for a long period of time. God kept smacking me in the face to wake up. And eventually I had to listen or I would have to leave this place. Really, I felt like it's either you change or die. You evolve or die. Those were my two options at the time. But, ever since I was very, very young, and I'm sure I'm not just speaking for myself, but almost everybody in their own way. I think this is a common theme, but this was my experience. So I was always different, always interested in like the stars and space and like the beyond. And I don't know why, but I loved it. Like I as a kid, I was watching like Ancient Aliens by myself. It was the coolest thing for me. And as I went into middle school, I started sharing that and people were looking at me like, what the hell? Like when I was a kid, it was like, I was like 7, 8.
Where were you growing up? New York?
Long Island.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I started showing certain things of how I really feel. Like when my grandfather died, I was okay with it. I was happy because the guy had Alzheimer's. He was suffering. He's no longer suffering. God bless him. I'm happy for him. People looked at me like, what's wrong with you? Because like I was 8, and they're like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you like grieving? I'm like, I am. I'm sad that he's not here, but I'm very happy for him. So after seeing as a kid, seeing certain people look at me in weird ways, my defense mechanism was I have to put on a mask. I don't want to be the weirdo. So that's what I did. Middle school, I started changing. And into high school, I always had this in me, but I never wanted to show it because nobody understood it. So instead, I did the opposite. I was the guy that threw all the parties. I was the guy that went out and we drank and we smoked. We did everything. I was clubbing in New York City by age 14. I had a beard already. I had my cousin's fake ID.
I could see that shit, bro.
You, I would go and I would control the club. I would walk in. I would bring like 200 underage people with me, 16, 17, 18, take $20 from each of them, give it to the bouncer, gave him $4,000. I said, the club's mine now. He said, do whatever you want. And that was my life. 15, 16, 17, 18. And throughout that period of time, because that was the most unaligned version of myself there was, I started getting hurt. This shoulder dislocated 23 times.
What?
I got 3 shoulder surgeries, almost needed a mechanical shoulder by age 18. Then I got a staph infection in my left leg right here. It almost killed me on a backpacking trip in Thailand. And that was the last strand for me. I was in a sling for a lot of my life because of what was going on throughout those 4 years. And I was in the hospital, and that's when I looked. And it was the first time I could hear my heartbeat because I was just by myself in the hospital room on my 19th birthday. On my 19th birthday, my family was there. We did everything. But throughout this period of 10 days in the hospital for my leg, I was just in silence and presence with myself for the first time. Before that, I was like, it was all ego. It was all like, look at what I'm doing. Look at what I have. It was all material because that's what I thought I needed to do to be cool. That was my mask, so much so that I forgot who I actually was. So now this happens. I'm in the hospital. I hear my heartbeat and I'm like, holy shit. The space, the time, the lapse in between each beat, what the hell is that? That's the first thought I had. I'm like, I was in awe, and it was like a download. And I still don't know how to explain what that thing is, but it showed me that the heart can only beat because of the spaces and the time in between each beat. which means there's this place of stillness and presence that everything is coming out of. I don't know what that thing is, but I know that it exists. And then I started having a lot of interesting experiences. I looked at a plant and I saw multiple different plants coming out of the same soil. I'm like, oh my God, how is that possible? How are different plants coming out of the same soil? And like, these aren't things we think about. We look at a plant, we move on. But I was in a state of just, I don't know what it was, where I was so present. And I'm looking at the plant and I'm like, okay. So I see a tomato plant, whatever, and mint and parsley and cilantro, but it's all coming out of the same source. What's making it different? The seed. And then it brought me to understand, okay, well, if the seed is making it different, but it's coming from the soil, then soil has this like limitless potential that the seed directs from the soil into physical matter. I'm like, okay, so how do we look at the world and apply that? Well, this formless realm where everything exists of infinite potential is akin to the soil. The seed is the same thing as your thoughts and your words. And the plant is your matter. And when we look at it that way, that shows you exactly how to create. The seed is a cause. The plant is the effect. If I plant a poisonous seed, I'm going to have a shitty plant. If I plant a coherent seed, I'm going to have a very healthy plant. And I don't know why I started getting these messages, but I looked and I'm like, okay, something's happening right now, and I need to disappear for as long as it's going to be needed. I disappeared for 1.5 years. I shut off all communication with everybody other than my family. I shut down and permanently deleted every single one of my social medias. Well, it was really Instagram. I wasn't doing anything publicly.
Yeah.
It was just like one of those personal ones that I was using of my old life at the time. I literally died and was being reborn, and my rebirth process was about 18 months. And I'm still going through it, but about 18 months.
And where did you go for that 18-month period?
Just home.
Okay.
Home, I was working, I was focused on school, focused on work. I was focused on retiring my father in the family business. That never happened because 6 months before he was about to retire, I'm looking and I'm like, Abba, because that's what I call him. I'm like, Abba, I don't want to do this real estate. I'm not here for this. I'm here for whatever's going on here. And he's like, but like, how are you going to like do anything in life? And like, again, he's also a businessman. He's like, how are you like going to make money? How are you like, and I said, listen, let me go and create something. I have a vision. I need your support. And I know that you're going to be there for me, but I don't want you to give me anything. I don't want a salary. I don't want anything anymore. And I know in your head, you're going to say, if it fails, he'll come back to the business. And he thought it would. In my head, there was no plan B. Like it was so intense in my mind where failure would have meant death. I was doing it almost like you're fighting for your life. And that's why I believe we succeeded. Because I didn't sleep, Jeremy. I was up all during COVID.
Were you building this mostly by yourself?
Only by myself. Before it was me only. Then I got one assistant, Whitney, who's today very high level in the organization with Unified. And today we're like 40, 50 people. I don't know how many,
Really?
Yeah. It grew into something really big. Today I can't do anything without the team. They're the reason why all of this happens. They give me the freedom to be able to do this in the first place. So I owe it to them because they're really what Unified is. I'm just the face and the speaker and all that. But like, dude, doing this in 3 years, forget 3 years. It's what we did in the first 6 months. And I didn't sleep and I didn't want to sleep. There was no looking left or right. There was no failure. There was no option to fail. There was no pillow to fall back on. If I fall back, it's on a bed of nails that's going to kill me. That's how I saw it. And everybody's looking at me. They don't understand because my family's like, why are you doing this? Like we have like a lot of properties all around the world. Come take over and move on.
Yeah.
Like why are you dealing? You don't have to do this. I said, I know, I want to.
Yeah, it's such a valuable It's such a valuable lesson too for, I think, both kids and parents.
Yeah.
I think what happens a lot of times, I think there's a reason why some of the most fucked up people grew up in very affluent households, right? And their parents gave them a lot of things for their entire childhood. Like as soon as they got their driver's permit at 15 and a half, they get like a freaking Bentley or a Porsche. They have like $100,000 bar mitzvah party, like all of these crazy things. And a lot of times what I've been learning in Kabbalah is this idea of bread of shame, where it is like you have received all of this light without actually doing anything to deserve it.
Dude, it was my biggest problem. I'm looking around me and I had everything.
Yeah.
And it pissed me off because I'm looking and I'm like, I didn't do this. I didn't do it. Like, yeah, I know there's a reason why I chose this family and blah, 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 and all that on a spiritual, fine. But like, how do I know that if I wasn't brought into this family, I have what it takes to do what my father did? And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And the past 3 years also fulfilled that for myself. I know that no matter what happens next, anywhere I go, we're going to make it the top. We're going to make it the best because that's what I developed over the past 3 years. Now, there was a guilt associated with it because I saw so many people, and a lot of people are like, you're rich, you could do whatever you want, just be happy. And I'm like, no, there are a lot of problems that come with that too, right? There was a level of guilt of who I was around, and I did go to school with a lot of people in that situation in high school, in the same situation that I was in. But in middle school, I went to a much more, I went to a public school, not a private school. It was different. And I even remember there were people saying like, oh, like you're rich, you could do whatever you want. And it really pissed me off, but it also made me feel sad because I saw a lot of them struggling and I saw a lot of their parents struggling. And every day I would go home and I'm like, why do I not have to do that? And why are they going through that? And that made me struggle emotionally because I'm like, what the hell did I do to deserve that? So now there were two types of people in my world of high school with all the private school kids that did have the money and the affluence and the family and all that. Not all of them, but some of them ended up on heavy drugs, ending up in rehab. And I saw that and I'm like, what are you doing? You came into this world on level 10, okay?
Yeah.
Everybody else is coming in from level 1 having to grow. You came in on level 10, but then I realized I was wrong. They didn't. I came in on level 1, even though my father was level 10. I came in on level 1, and all of them came in on level 1 too. The difference is we're living in an environment of level 10. Now, I'm not expecting every single person in that environment to go and, slave away and try to figure out what it's like to do what somebody like my father did because he came from nothing. I'll never know what it is in experience to go through what my father went through. But when I realized that, I said, I at least need to do my best. To do my best to put myself in that mental state, to do my best to try and understand that. Because if I don't, I will be at level 1 always. Yeah. Living in a level 10 life, and that's how you end up a drug addict. Because you're constantly in a dissonance. You're constantly in a distortion. So I said, what do I have to do to go through level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? So I started sitting down with my father, with a few other people, and I said, I need you guys to share what you went through. And then I even did things like I was a car salesman. I was a pizza delivery boy. I worked at a landscaping company. Not because I had to, because I wanted to be around level 1, level 2, level 3, to do my best to experience it, and then have that level of understanding to whatever level I could, to be able to be earning and deserving of living a level 10 life. That's what I've been doing since I realized that. And unfortunately, a lot of people in my position did the opposite. They took advantage of the level 10. And they're level 1. That's why they ended up where they're at.
And what's interesting about that, right, is I work with some clients and there's a big area of disconnect and pain between them and their children oftentimes as their kids get older. And, when you're a parent and you have money, you have resources, naturally you want to provide the best life for your children.
Which is also a big problem.
Exactly. But here's the thing. You can provide an amazing, loving, rich life without just handing them all this material shit, without doing anything to actually earn it. Because now it's programmed their mind to just believe like, I deserve to receive all of this stuff.
Entitlement.
Exactly. And entitlement is one of the biggest epidemics happening, right? Because not only are you aware that you actually didn't do anything to receive that light, you also start building resentment towards your parents, because it's like, wow, did they not have the confidence and faith in me that I could actually create a beautiful life by myself without their handouts? So that's one of the things I'm most grateful for, man, honestly, with like the way my parents raised me. They both grew up like very humble, didn't have much. My dad went on to be a doctor, and even as they accumulated some money, like we did all of our shopping for clothes at Ross, TJ Maxx. Like a night out going to a restaurant would be like Chili's or Red Robin. And honestly, like I was just ingrained with this mindset of gratitude and work ethic. Like if I want something, it's going to require me to show up and put in the effort.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that is such a valuable lesson for the parents and soon to be parents. I know you probably want to be a dad at some point, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just glad we got to kind of go through that experience ourselves so we can kind of shape our reality too for our future kids.
It's the most important thing, because you see, my parents are so loving and giving that it can actually do damage. They want to give so much that and I don't know what caused me growing up to say, no, I don't want it.
Yeah.
But I could have accepted a lot of things that they wanted to give, and it would have changed everything for me. But instead, there was this thing in me, and I don't know where it came from. I don't know why, but it was a very big blessing, that I didn't want anything when they gave a handout, because I needed to do it for myself. I needed to do it for myself, and I knew that it could have brought me to a place of entitlement if I got comfortable in that way. So I kept rejecting, and they're looking at me like, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm like, I love you, and I know you want to give it because you love me. But if you love too hard, you could hurt.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to be careful from. So I learned it through that experience. And today my mom totally understands that. And she's like, I understand, I get it. But it's hard for her because she loves me and my sister so much that she wants to give us everything. You know, like she's like, when you get married, I'm buying you a house. I said, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And you're not paying for the wedding either. Because that's what they do. You know, they could. And
Where are your parents from?
Israel.
Oh, they are. They're both Israeli.
Well, my father, Israeli, my mother,
like
American.
Moroccan?
But
I get Moroccan.
no, everybody's Persian Yemenite.
Okay.
Yeah, so back Persian Yemenite. And it's funny because from the level of Israel, Iran and Yemen are the two that are always trying to come at them now. But that's where I'm from, Persian and Yemenite.
Dude, the Persians are amazing people.
Yeah.
I really hope that Iran has a change in leadership and government soon, because the Persian people are absolutely incredible.
At some point, all of those things have to change. And I think we're coming to a tipping point. I think people are not just in the space of like politics. I think people are starting to see things differently in all aspects, in all domains, on all subjects. And people are changing. You know, people are changing. I wish it would happen faster, but you can't force that. You know,
I'm actually sorry, Jason.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious though, because, you know, we're obviously both proud Jews, you know, and, you know, you're Israeli. I'm not, but, you know, I spend a lot of time out there. And October 7th, 2023, one of the most challenging days of our lifetime to be Jewish.
Yeah.
You know, 1,200 people massacred at Nova Music Festival. And then the backlash globally, people celebrating this attack and basically just saying like, yeah, Israel, the Jews, you deserve this, right? This was before Israel did any sort of retaliatory efforts, by the way, which was so mind-boggling to me. Anyways, this was probably one of the most divisive events, specifically in the spiritual world, right? And I want to know what your experience has been like kind of navigating that. I don't know how much you share about like your Judaism and stuff like that, because there's this idea, it's this conflict, right? It's this paradox of like oneness, connection, unity, and then something like October 7th happens and it's like, okay, yes, I want to try to hold this container, but then there's the reality of the situation. There's good versus evil. There's people in this world that actually don't value human life. And speaking up for that and speaking into that truth for me was challenging at first, but it just felt so right because I felt like there's so much misinformation and lies being spread. You know, this whole idea that Israel's an apartheid state and they're committing a genocide. I'm like, these people have no fucking idea what they're talking about. They're watching TikTok videos. They'll never actually set foot in the Middle East to experience life in Israel on their own. And I lost like 20 to 25,000 followers in a 6-month span when I started to really speak up about my Judaism and my support for Israel. And at the end of the day, bro, I'm so grateful that I took that leap.
100%.
Because it really helped me detach from validation externally, and it helped me connect in a deeper way to my truth. And in that process, I attracted such amazing people in my life who were able to like fully see the message and the mission. So I'm curious to know, like, what was that process for you like?
For me, it wasn't just a sad day to be a Jew. It was a sad day to be a human because I was there. I was there from the second it happened. I flew in about 12 hours before it started, woke up to that, didn't know the severity of what was going on. But after the Holocaust, that was the second worst day in Jewish history, if we're talking about Judaism now, like recent history, I should say. Very, very, very sad. And, you know, everybody has their sides and this and that. And for me, it was just like, what the hell is that? What are we fighting about? Like, why? This isn't a matter of one people against another people. It's a matter of, in my opinion, certain people at the top creating problems and using people against each other.
Yeah.
And there's the surface situation of what we're talking about, of people against people and what happened that day. And there's the deeper situation of where it's really all rooted from. And those are two completely different things, but still interconnected. I'll never forget when I was there. And honestly, I felt almost like, it was almost like, am I in the Holocaust right now? That night, it happened on a Saturday. And I'm sharing this because I want everybody, regardless of where you stand, I don't care where you stand, I want you to connect to the human perspective for a second. This was one of the angriest moments of my life and the saddest moments of my life as being a human. Saturday, staying at one of the hotels in Herzliya, hiding from bombs and missiles that are flying in the air above my head, in shock of like, you know, it's one thing to shoot missiles and they block, it happens all the time. It's another thing to fill buses up with kids and elders and a 9-month-old baby, you know, and like I'm looking like, what the hell is going on? And then we said, you know, me and who's now my fiance, because I went to see her, she was my girlfriend at the time. That was the beginning of our relationship, by the way. That's how it all started. That war is essentially why her and I are getting married, which is kind of crazy, but that's a whole different story. So it's a Saturday. I'm dealing with all of this, looking at all of this, and we get hungry. I said, okay, let's order. No food in the hotel, no service. Just stay in your room. And I'm like, I gotta eat. Let's find a delivery. So we looked at Walt and all of those, you know, apps and whatnot. Nobody's delivering. Nobody's open. I'm like, okay, listen, there's a hotel about 200 feet from us next door. Let's go out. Let's go to the hotel. Let's find some food. We need food. I'm starving. I haven't eaten for like almost a whole day from what was going on. And I didn't expect for there to be a food problem. I was never in a situation like this. So now it's Saturday night. I look out the window of the hotel room. Nobody is in the street. Not a car, not a person, not a dog, nothing. I'm like, listen, let's go. Nobody's outside. Let's run. We'll go to the other hotel. Me and Noah, who's my fiance, go outside of the hotel, and they're looking at us like, are you seriously leaving this building right now? I'm like, we got to eat. I'm going to eat. I leave the building. The second we go outside and we start running, a car is in the distance. And the first reaction that Noah had was to take me, pull me behind a wall that we had to hide behind. It was like this wall divider, just in case the person in that car was going to kill us. The fact that I had to hide behind something, just in case that was somebody with a gun to put a bullet in my head, was one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life. And I realized in that moment how screwed up, not just the Middle East is, it's how screwed up this planet is. Where have we come to that this is what's going on? And I'll never not acknowledge, I'll always acknowledge the fact that there are bad leaders on all sides, including in our country in the United States. You don't go and destroy and kill and do all of that to fix a problem, because that will not fix a problem. And it made me very sad that day, and also empowered me and lit this fire in me of like, number one, I'm a very, very proud Jew in my tradition. I'm not religious, but every morning I put on tefillin. It's a meditation for me. That's how I use it. I use it because I believe, although religion is something that I personally don't like, and I think is a very big problem in the world today, we still have to honor our roots in terms of where we're at. And for me and my ancestors, it's an energy of a Jewish past. And for a Christian person, it may be an energy of a Christian past. Same thing with Islam and so on and so forth. And it makes me feel good to connect to that energy for myself.
Yeah.
Because I feel that in the way that I'm built in this life, that's a path for me to walk on. Just like if somebody else had a different path, it would be their path to walk on differently. So Shabbat dinners, the language itself, Hebrew, I think is
I wanted to talk to you about that.
A powerful, powerful, powerful language because, and it's not a Jewish language, by the way. Hebrew existed before Judaism came to fruition in the year around 2448 on the Hebrew calendar. The Hebrews were the ones that adopted it in the Old Testament, what we call the Torah, and that's why people associate it with Judaism. But that alphabet existed as Aramaic before anybody called it Hebrew. That alphabet, they've done scientific studies to show or have a hypothesis, and they proved it to be right, which is the coolest thing ever. The letter Aleph, when you say it out loud, or let's go to the letter A in English. When I say A out loud and I map that sound onto a specific type of graph, it's an arbitrary shape. But when I say Aleph, the shape of the sound is an Aleph. And when I say Bet, the shape of the sound is the letter. Going to Gematria, what that means is, we spoke about words being a form of creating thoughts into matter. The term abracadabra comes from Aramaic. It's creating and using certain frequencies in a way to create. The book of, what's it called? Sefer HaYetzirah, the book of creation. Nobody knows who wrote it, but it's used in some very, very powerful settings to create or manipulate in a positive way certain realities all the way down to weather.
Wow.
Because through certain words, letters, and frequencies and sounds, in this case, the Hebrew language or Aramaic, you're able to do incredible things, meaning English was an arbitrarily created language. Hebrew is a discovered language. It's based on mathematics. So the word chai, which is two letters, which means life, as you know, is made of two letters, chet and yud. Chet in Gematria is the letter 8, Yud in Gematria is the letter 10. You add those up, you get 18. So we call it, in Judaism, 18 is Chai, the number of life. But you know what else is 18? The base frequency of this planet, the Schumann's resonance, 7.83 hertz. Add 7, 8, and 3 and tell me what you get. You're going to get 18. They knew that back then. The word was not created, it was discovered based on certain formulas, based on Gematria, which is based on those languages. So I'm proud of that.
Wow.
I'm proud to speak a language like that. I'm grateful to be connected to something like that. I don't see the Torah as a book for Jews. I see the Torah as a book for humanity. Maybe it was given to a nation to share with the world. I think we're doing a very shitty job. I think we, as a collective of Jews, are hoarding information instead of sharing it. Because most rabbis, not all, but most rabbis, see the world not from a united place. And that's a very big problem. I don't think those people have a right to be a rabbi.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to step up and be a rabbi, you first and foremost have to have the proper awareness and consciousness. You need to understand things from Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, everything is one. God is one. And there is no me and you or us versus them. And until we can actually get that and teach that's what's going to bring us further. That's what the Torah teaches us. The fact that we interpreted it to something else because we're coming from here as opposed to here of where it was written from, whole different story. But I'm proud and I'm grateful. And I think that every way of life and walk of life and path of life has its own beautiful aspects to it. From Christianity to Islam with the Sufis, they have their own mystical side to it, to Judaism, to Buddhism, and so on and so forth. It's us as human beings that created the division and the problem, not those books. Yeah. Those books were interpreted wrongfully, shared in a negative way, and caused war.
Bro, it's actually so crazy. I feel like you explained why. That's really the overarching reason why for most of my adult life I felt so disconnected from Judaism, because I felt like it lacked the spiritual essence, right? And a lot of the rabbis that I was exposed to, they didn't really seem to actually be happy, joyful, grateful, healthy. And for me, I was like, I just don't connect at that level until I really connected with Chabad and like Kabbalah. That's when I started to appreciate it in a deeper, more meaningful way.
I was kicked out of all of my Judaic studies in high school. I went to a Jewish private school. And by 10th grade, 11th grade, I was not allowed in Gemara and Chumash and all of those classes because they called me a disturbance to the class. Now, I wasn't a disturbance. The rabbi was just saying nonsense. So I asked him a question. And that question he couldn't answer. And he had to find ways to answer it throughout the whole class so they couldn't get through the curriculum.
Which is so crazy, by the way, because as a student, that's your job, is to be curious, to ask questions. So to be punished and reprimanded for actually challenging your teacher, challenging the rabbi, is the problem with a lot of the education system in America, where it's like trying to get everyone to conform. Because at the end of the day, this entire schooling system was designed to create employees and slaves to a system that isn't actually connected to your highest self. It's designed to really disconnect you from your divinity. So it's funny that happened, bro.
It was the best thing that happened because I couldn't learn with them. I didn't want to learn with them either. I said, let me read it myself. So I started reading. I read the whole Torah twice. And I wanted to understand, like, what is this? And I'm
you read the whole Torah twice?
Yeah, I actually started writing it because I'm like, after I read it twice, I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this whole thing. And just to ingrain it further and see what happens. I never got to it. I don't remember why. Something happened. I started and I never finished. Maybe I will. You just reminded me of that.
Why? You actually inspired me because I was thinking I'm going to Israel in 3 months. And I'm like, I should probably get a Hebrew tutor, you know? So I can go there and actually be somewhat conversational.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm blown away by the synchronicities in the Hebrew language. For instance, obviously, you have the word neshama, which means soul, and then you have neshima, which means breath. And it's like the breath is the most powerful portal to our soul.
100%.
And then even this tattoo I have, ahava.
Ahava.
Right?
So ahava is the number 13. Aleph is 1, Hey is 5, Bet is 2, Hey is 5. You add that up, you get 13. 13 is the number of love. Meanwhile, in America, it's the number of unlucky.
That's ridiculous. And I also was told that Hav, the root of it, is to give.
I don't know that one. Those are different. I'm not that deep into it.
Yeah.
Like I know netina is to give, like latet.
Okay.
But hav could also be another root that I'm not aware of.
That's what one rabbi that I connected with, he was like, yeah, ahava means to love, and the root of it is hav, which means to give. And to love is to give your 100% presence,
Unconditional
energy.
giving.
Exactly. Especially from the masculine perspective, like we're designed to give and provide.
Yeah.
So that really resonated with me. Bro, what a beautiful language, bro. You know what I'm saying?
It's awesome, man. It's awesome.
I want to close this container and give you the opportunity, because like we covered so many bases, and I feel like we're definitely gonna have to drop into a round 2.
We will.
Yeah, bro. Wow. I have pages of notes for my own selfish reasons, like that I want to just explore and go deeper with. What's something that maybe we didn't touch on, or a final message that you like to leave everyone with?
I'll close with a final message, and I'll speak directly to all of you. We all have gifts, every single one of us. And I know a lot of people watch podcasts sometimes, and they're like, I got to listen to this person. And that's all fun, but you got to listen to yourself first and foremost. You got to find those answers within you, because when you become empowered in that way, and I'm not saying be arrogant, I know it all, things like that, right? I'm saying learn to count on yourself more. Learn to go deeper into yourself, even if you don't have 10 years of experience in medical school, because unfortunately, if you haven't learned yet from this conversation, they don't have too much knowledge either with what's going on in the world. So don't underestimate yourself. Do your best to expand yourself. Go try new things. And don't sit there and ever kind of play victim with anything in your life, because it's not worth it. If you're playing victim, it's an energy that will impact you directly. And you're really responsible for your entire life. You're responsible for every outcome, every consequence in your life, all the good and all the bad. But the beautiful parts with the bad is actually the greatest in disguise. And if you learn how to take the bad and find the greatest silver lining within that, everything will change in your life. Just like I did with my father's death, just like I did with a lot of things that happened to me in my life, because they didn't happen to me, and nothing happens to you, it happens for you. All you have to do is start asking and looking. Almost like when you start saying, let's look for yellow cars on the road, and you play that game and you tap your buddy in the car every time you see one. Well, before that, you probably never saw a yellow car on the road. And the second you start paying attention to it, you start seeing multiple a day. If you look for ugly, you will find ugly. And if you look for beauty, you will find beauty. So look for beauty, go experience beauty, go create beauty, and go be the best version of yourself that you could be. That would be my closing message to everybody.
Wow. That was like a Shabbat sermon right there, bro. That was fire. Yeah. Like, I think I was literally going to tell you, like, you just embodied everything that you just said. And, you know, I've learned in my journey that your mission, your purpose is encoded in your pain. Like the most challenging obstacles, adversities, and challenges that we experience in this life are the most powerful opportunity for us to transmute that pain into purpose and just elevate into the highest version of ourselves. And you embody that beautifully, bro. I'm so grateful that we got to do this. And I really do want to have a round 2 soon. And, you know, I think it's amazing to just see how you have used this really challenging moment and experience as a catalyst for your mission, and just going to take things to another level. And, you know, I wish you and your family the best, bro. And I'm always here to support you as a friend and brother. And this was a really special pod.
This was amazing.
You were in a deep flow state, and it was beautiful to witness.
Thank you. And thank you for really making this happen. It's your energy that put this whole thing together. Thank you.
Much love, everybody. Make sure to check out the links in the description. We're going to link the light system that Jason was talking about. We're going to link to all of his channels. Make sure to stay tapped into what he's doing with Unified Healing. Some amazing, amazing things.
A lot of centers all around the world for people to experience. And that's one thing that I would ask everybody to go and do. UnifiedHealing.com, 500 centers around the world. Go see them, go experience them, see it for yourself. It's a flawless and beautiful experience.
There you have it. Much love, fam. Subscribe, share this with a friend. Honestly, I would actually appreciate it, and I know Jason would too, if you tagged us on social media, tag us on Instagram, and let us know what the biggest download you had, what the biggest takeaway that you had from this conversation was, because as you know, knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential power. So it's up to you to actually implement these lessons into your life. Much love, everybody. Peace. Woo! You did it. You made it to the end of the show. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your support in listening to this podcast. And really, my mission here is to deliver the best conversations, the best people, so you can continue elevating and becoming the best version of yourself. And all that I ask in return is that you actually take action on the things that we talk about in these conversations, whether it's certain habits to implement or certain thought patterns or belief systems that you want to reprogram and remove from your life. I just want to remind you that your life is your gift and you are the creator. You are the main character of your movie. So please, please take action on these things we discuss. And tag me on social media. Tag me on Instagram in your stories at Jeremy Awakens. Let me know what stood out the most to you. Let me know what were some powerful moments for you from this conversation. And finally, if you haven't already done so, it would mean the world if you left a review for the podcast. Word of mouth is our oxygen. This is what allows us to reach more people and impact more lives. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you next time.